Hi everyone, we're learning Tanya Igeres Hatshuva, chapter 7, the overview of chapter 7 for the 20th day of Tammuz. A true path of tshuva requires these two processes. Number one, arousing mercy on one's soul's descent, and thereby the Shekhinah's descent as well. And number two, crushing the arrogant spirit. The latter is achieved by an honest and thorough reflection and accounting of one's wrongdoing. In the language of the Zohar, the lower level of repentance entails returning the letter Hey of the four-letter name of God to its original place, Teshuvah. Toshuv Hey, the Hey returns, returning the Shekhinah, which is the source of the Jewish souls, from the exile to which it was banished by transgression. For when a man sins, the divine vitality that flows forth from the Shekhinah descends into the chambers of Klippa and Sitra Achra. And from there, that individual in turn derives nurture. At the time of his sins, repentance redeems the Shekhinah from its exile and returns the flow to its proper place. This was the theme of the previous chapter. Ve'ulam derech ha'emes va'yosha, b'chinas tshuva tato, hei tato, nizkeres and beis dvom derech klal. However, the true and direct path to the lower level of tshuva, returning the letter Hey, as noted above, involves two general elements. The first is to awaken supreme compassion from the source of mercy for one's divine spirit and soul. Why do we need mercy? That has fallen from a lofty height, rooftop, the infinite source of life, into a deep pit. Not merely from a rooftop, but from a lofty rooftop. Not merely into a pit, but into a deep pit. Namely the chambers of defilement and Sitra Achra. As explained in the previous chapter, a person's sins degrade his soul to the chambers of the Klippus and Sitra Achra, finding itself in such a sorry state. Such a soul is indeed in need of divine compassion. One should arouse divine compassion as well for the source of the soul in the source of life, the four-letter name of God. Since the soul is rooted in the Yud Kei Vav Kei, its degradation brought about by sin correspondingly causes the flow of holiness that emanates from the Yud Kei Vav Kei to descend into the chambers of the Klippus and Sitra Achra. Hence, not only the soul, but its source too is so to be pitied. Pasuk states, he shall return to God and he will have compassion for him. The sinner shall return to God and have compassion for him. But how are we to understand the concept of arousing mercy for the Yud Kei Vav Kei? This means arousing compassion for the life-giving power issuing from the four-letter name that has descended by stages into the chambers of the impure Sitra Achra to give them vitality. This descent was brought about by the deeds of man and his evil schemes and thoughts. Evil thoughts alone suffice to make the vitality descend into the chambers of the Klippus and Sitra Achra. Melech osu borehotim. As the pasuk states, the king is bound with gutters, which is interpreted to mean that the king is bound with the gutters of the mind. This state, as noted above, is the exile of the Shechina, the divine presence, the level of Malchus, of kingship, of the world of Atzilus. The auspicious time for this arousal of compassion is Tikkun Chatzos, the midnight lament for the exile of the divine presence. As pointed out in the note of Tikkun Chatzos, in the Siddur, see there at length. We find in that prayer, the crown of our head is fallen. Woe to us, for we have sinned. Sin causes the soul's source, the crown of our head, to topple into the depth of the klippos and sitracha. Therefore, the Holy One, blessed be He, is called the humiliated King. In Pirkei Cholos, as Rabbi Moshe Cordovero wrote, for there is no humiliation deeper than this, than the ignominy of exile within the realm of the klippos. Especially when a thoughtful person meditates on the greatness of the Infinite One, who permeates all worlds and encompasses all worlds. For God provides vitality to created beings, both in a manner which permeates each recipient according to its individual capacity, as well as in a manner that transcends and encompasses them. Each person meditating upon God's greatness according to the range of his intellect and understanding. He will be extremely grieved over this. The richer one's perception of God's majesty, the more intense will be his feeling of compassion for his own soul and for its source, the bound and humiliated King. The second element in one's preparation for a true and direct path to repentance is to crush and subdue the klipa and sitracha, whose entire being is simply grossness and arrogance. As the pasuk states, if you exalt yourself like the eagle, this crushing and subjugation, absolutely to dust, is its death and nullification. Evil is crushed through a broken and contrite heart, a sense of personal unworthiness, repugnance, and so forth. As explained in part 1, chapter 29, the animal soul, even of a Benoni, how much more so of a sinner, is the very person himself. When his heart is humbled, his animal soul, which derives from klipa, is, of course, humbled as well. Crushing and subduing one's arrogance crushes the klippos and sitracha. This is described in the Zohar on the pasuk. Offerings to God, Elokim, are a broken spirit. The offering consists of breaking the spirit of the klippos and sitracha, and this is achieved through a heart broken and contrite. For all animal offerings are dedicated to God, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, the attribute of mercy. This is why all verses which speak of offerings to God refer to Him with the Yud Kei Vav Kei. To Elokim, however, the name indicating the attribute of justice, no animal offering is brought. Instead, Ki'im, what is considered an offering to Elikim, for the verse does, after all, state the offerings to Elikim, the offering is the shattering and removing of the spirit of defilement and sitracha. This is the meaning of a broken spirit. How is the spirit of the sitracha broken? When the heart is broken and contrite. The takeaway from today's Tanya, Teshuvah, reflection, drawing forth divine mercy, my soul is regal. It belongs in heavenly palace, and it is now in the dumps. And we'll continue this essay tomorrow. Welcome to you.